She walked into the grand hall in a plain dress and worn-out shoes, her eyes scanning the shining chessboards and the rows of polished trophies. The room fell silent for a split second, not out of respect, but surprise. Whispers started immediately. Who was she? What was she doing here? Some laughed quietly, others smirked, shaking their heads. In a place filled with grandmasters, elite players, and seasoned fans, she looked completely out of place. Just a simple woman, no coach, no team, not even a name anyone recognized. The tournament was one of the biggest of the year, packed with media, flashing cameras, and some of the greatest chess minds in the world. Among them was the reigning world champion genius on the board, undefeated for years, feared and respected by all. He sat with confidence, used to winning, used to praise. For him, this tournament was just another trophy waiting to be claimed. No one paid her much attention. When the pairings were announced and her name was matched against his, a few chuckled. One commentator even joked, "This will be over in 10 moves." But she calmly sat down, hands steady, gaze clear. She didn't seem nervous. She didn't look around for approval or try to defend her presence. She simply focused on the board as if this was where she truly belonged. The clock started ticking. The champion made his first move, casual and almost bored. She responded immediately. Her moves were quiet, deliberate, and sharp. Within 10 minutes, the laughter in the room faded. By 20 minutes, the commentators had gone silent. Every piece she moved created a ripple tension, growing with each passing second. The champion began shifting in his seat, confused, then concerned. Who was this woman? Where had she come from? And more importantly, how was she doing this? The room that once mocked her was now holding its breath. And just when it seemed like the impossible was unfolding right in front of them, she leaned forward, eyes locked on the board, and played a move that changed everything. The move stunned everyone. A quiet gasp spread across the room as players and spectators leaned in, trying to understand what had just happened. The champion stared at the board, his confident smile now gone. His fingers hovered over his next piece, but he didn't move. For the first time in the tournament, maybe even in years, he was unsure. But while the cameras zoomed in on the match, no one knew the full story of the woman sitting calmly on the other side of the table. Her name was Sophia. She wasn't a professional chess player, nor did she have any formal ranking. In fact, most of her life had been spent far from tournaments and trophies. She worked as a cleaner in a small-town library, earning just enough to get by. But what most people didn't know was that between sweeping floors and stacking books, Sophia had spent hours studying chess puzzles from old books, watching matches on second-hand screens, and quietly training her mind. She had never played in front of a crowd before, never been interviewed, never had a coach. Her only teacher was time and, her only classroom, solitude. The idea of facing the world champion had felt like a dream, or a mistake. But now, here she was, sitting across from the man who once seemed untouchable. And with every passing move, she was making the impossible look real. The commentators began to whisper again, but now their tone was different. Curious, cautious, they started analyzing her strategy on screen, replaying earlier moves to see what they had missed. Viewers online flooded the chat, asking the same question: who is this woman? But even as her name began to spread beyond the tournament hall, Sophia kept her eyes locked on the board. She wasn't done yet. Every move Sophia made seemed quiet, almost gentle, but there was something behind it, a hidden sharpness. A mind that had spent years watching from the shadows, memorizing patterns, understanding how champions thought, and learning how to slip between their confidence. She never looked up, never reacted, just moved her pieces with a calm rhythm that made even the most experienced players feel unsettled. The champion was sweating now. though he tried to hide it behind his usual focused look. But those who knew him, his team, his rivals, his longtime fans, could tell something was off. He had underestimated her. Everyone had. And now he was slowly realizing he was in a position he rarely found himself in. On the defensive, in the crowd. A few chess veterans exchanged confused glances. Some began whispering about an old Talon anonymous player who had once stunned a local competition years ago, winning without saying a word and then disappearing. Could this be her? Others weren't sure. Maybe she had trained secretly, far from the public eye. But why now? Why this tournament? Why risk it all against the best player in the world? Even more curious was how Sophia got here. Her name wasn't on the original list. She had registered at the last minute, paying in cash, alone, no manager, no sponsor. When asked for background details, she simply wrote, "Self-taught." The mystery grew with every tick of the clock. Viewers online were posting screenshots analyzing her past, but nothing came up. No history, no public games. Just a name, a face. A game unfolding that no one could explain. And yet, Sophia didn't seem to care about the attention. She wasn't here for fame or headlines. She was here for the board. And she had come prepared. The room was no longer just watching. They were locked in. The quiet buzz of earlier had faded into a thick silence, broken only by the soft clicks of the clock and the occasional deep breath. Even the champion's team stood frozen behind the ropes, eyes glued to the board. Each move Sophia made seemed to strip away another layer of his control. He tried to recover, pushing his queen forward with a bold, aggressive strike, a move that had crushed opponents in the past. But Sophia didn't flinch. She took only a few seconds before replying with a quiet move of her bishop. Not dramatic, but precise. That one response forced him back 2 steps. His fingers twitched. He leaned forward. This was not the game he had expected. Commentators were now whispering theories in rapid tones. "It's like she's predicting his every idea before he finishes it," one said. "She's walking him straight into something he just doesn't see it yet," another added. Chess players watching online couldn't believe it. Some started calling her the silent queen. Others zoomed into the board, trying to map out where this was going. The position looked normal to the untrained. I bet anyone who knew high-level chess could feel it. Something big was coming. The champion's eyes scanned the board like he was reading a foreign language. This wasn't just about losing a match anymore. This was about reputation, legacy, control. He had built a career on never breaking under pressure, but now, a woman with no rank, no sponsor, and no known past was putting all of it at risk, one move at a time. And then, she reached out her hand again. The crowd leaned in. The commentators fell silent. Even the champion held his breath. Her next move wasn't loud. It wasn't flashy. But when she placed her knight down just softly enough for the piece to click against the board, the entire room felt it check. The end was near. But not yet. The moment her knight landed with that quiet click, the crowd tensed. It was checkhand. Not the kind that could be shrugged off with a simple block. It was a trap. A deep, calculated snare that had been forming for over 20 moves, and now the world champion was staring right into it. He blinked, leaned back in his chair, and for a long moment, he didn't move. But just as the room began to brace for the end, something unexpected happened. He smiled. Not the confident kind he'd worn at the start, but something stranger, tired, almost amused. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object, a folded note. He unfolded it slowly, glancing at Sophia. The cameras didn't catch what was written on it, but whatever it said, it changed her expression instantly. She froze. Her calm hands, steady through every move until now, dropped to her lap. Her eyes locked onto the note, and for the first time in the match, doubt flickered across her face. The champion didn't speak. He didn't need to. Whatever secret he had just revealed, it hit hard. The crowd looked around, confused. The commentators stuttered, unsure whether this was part of the game or something entirely outside it. And then, whispers began to ripple again. Rumors. Some said the champion had recognized her not from chess, but from something buried deeper. A shared history, a secret past. Others said the note contained a prediction of her final moves, reine moves written. Before the game had started, Sophia slowly picked the note up from the table, unfolded it fully, and read it. Her eyes widened. But instead of backing down, she did something no one expected. She placed the note beside the board, calmly adjusted her knight, and looked up. There was no fear in her eyes now, only fire. The game wasn't over. But it was. No longer just about chess. The silence in the hall was now heavy, like the air before a storm. Everyone could feel it. The game had shifted, not on the board, but in the space between the two players. The champion's note sat quietly near the clock, untouched since Sophia had read it. Whatever it meant, it hadn't stopped her. It had awakened something. She reached out and made her next move a quiet pawn push. But to those watching closely, it was the key that unlocked everything. The commentators leaned forward, eyebrows raised. One finally whispered, "It's over. He just doesn't know it yet." The champion looked at the board, then at Sophia. The smile on his face had vanished again. He moved quickly now, perhaps hoping to shake her rhythm, but she didn't flinch. Her responses were immediate, confident. The trap had closed, and,